The Nuchatlaht trial started on March 21st, 2022, and continued for 4 weeks, during which the plaintiff, the Nuchatlaht, called their case. They called their evidence, magnificent evidence of proof of their ancient, continuous, exclusive occupation of that beautiful land on the north end of Nootka Island. What then was remarkable was that the Attorney General's lawyer presented what their case would be. And their case is a denial of the rights based on a number of what I consider to be inappropriate, quite uncomfortable, and disappointing arguments. Arguments that the Nuchatlaht had abandoned the territory. Well, of course they didn't abandon their territory, they were forced off of it. Arguments that the Nuchatlaht did not maintain a continuous connection with the land. Well, of course they didn't. It became illegal for them to continue to use the land under provincial legislation. Arguments that the Nuchatlaht's title was extinguished, although the word used is not extinguishment now. They call it displacement. Displacement by what? Provincial legislation. Of course, this is an obnoxious argument.
I gotta be honest, like just listening to BC, start to present their case, it was just very insulting, to be referred to as small and weak, is pretty insulting to me.
British Columbia adopted as legislation the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. This was a historic moment. Part of that is a promise that there will be an action plan. This was important. After 2.5 years, the government came out with its action plan, and one of the points in the action plan was there's going to be a new directive to lawyers working for the provincial government in conducting Indigenous litigation. That was good news. And so on the eve of Earth Day, just as the Nuchatlaht finished their evidence and it was time for the province to begin their evidence, the directive came down while we were in court. It was an astonishing and dramatic moment. We obtained that document. Before I sat down, I presented it to the judge. I said, "Judge, there's been a change. Look at this directive. It requires the lawyers on the other side of the table from me here to change the way they're conducting litigation. They may need some time." The judge looked at them and said, "Do you need some time?" The response was heartbreaking and disappointing. The lawyer for the government stood up and said, "We've known about these, and there will be no change in the conduct of this litigation."
There hasn't been any show of good faith, any sign of reconciliation. It's just been more of the same for us, which is big words followed by no action.
The change that we expected from the government was that they would stop making this litigation so time-consuming and expensive and so discouraging for First Nations who want to get their land back. The change that we expected was that they would stop arguing abandonment, extinguishment, smallness, and all of the other offensive arguments that they have been raising in this case, and that they would instead allow the case to proceed on a fair playing field. You have to understand that the Nuchatlaht is a tiny First Nation, just a very small group, and they're up against the full resources, the unlimited resources of the provincial crown. And it should be a fair fight, but it's not a fair fight, especially when the province continues to raise these old, discredited, distasteful, and offensive arguments that they've been doing for decades. That's what we expected to change, and it didn't change.
I think we have a pretty strong case, right? We don't have to create a bunch of smoke screens to try and make ourselves look good. We speak the truth, we speak facts, and I think once it gets out, that will be enough for us to win this case.
And I think there's still a chance. There's still a chance for the right-thinking people in the Ministry of Attorney General and for the Attorney General himself to turn this around, to say, okay, we did make a promise. It was a false start. Now let's do it again. Let's make this right. Let's actually conduct this process honorably and in the spirit of reconciliation, which is what every court in the country has dictated must happen. This is the process of reconciliation, and it has to be done fairly and honorably and not with the old impediments that have always been placed in front of Indigenous people who are seeking to get their land back.